It was an absolutely amazing Independence Day weekend. America 250, the big party, went off very, very, very well. I saw more patriotism than, admittedly, I would have expected. Less anger. Sure, you got Zohran Mamdani and Gavin Newsom doing their stupidity, doing their thing, but there were actually quite a few Democrats and leftists who were celebrating, who were honoring the United States of America. So hey, maybe there's hope. Probably not for them, but we will see. With that said, now that it's over, it is time to focus. We got a midterm election to win. President Trump has things to do. Republican Party has things to do. But really, let's face it, President Trump has things to do because we can't rely on Republicans in the House and the Senate to do what is necessary. So it's up to President Trump, and it's up to people like you and me to make it happen. So, Amanda, head over at justthenews.com, put together an article with America's big party over 5 battles Trump must win ahead of the midterm elections. We'll skip past the intro and go straight into this list of 5. Number 1, resolving the Iranian conflict. The U.S. and Israel launched strikes on Iran in late February 2026, triggering a regional war, a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and economic ripple effects, including energy price pressures. A memorandum of understanding was signed in mid-June. You all know all this. At the same time, the ceasefire seems to be an on-again, off-again affair. We think, okay, cool. Strait of Hormuz is open, and then they send a drone. Now, things have been sort of okay. We're in the middle of the former Ayatollah's week-long funeral. But we'll see what happens after that. To satisfy voters, though, Trump likely will have to finalize and implement a comprehensive deal within the 60-day window, which is over in mid-August. Fully stabilize the strait and region, secure verifiable limits on Iran's nuclear activities, and deliver visible economic relief. In other words, he has to have an unambiguous victory. That's it. Anything short of a victory, and this is going to hang over his administration and therefore hang over the Republican Party for the midterms. He needs a victory. Now, there will be, doesn't matter what happens, there are those who are against him, both on the right and the left, who, no matter what, they're going to say, oh, no. This is bad. This is horrible. Iran, who was it? One of the communists out there, communist commentators out there saying, Iran is in the best shape that they've ever been in. I'm just like, hello? No, they're not. They weren't in the best shape they've ever been in before they had their military decimated. But whatever. Then, of course, you'll have people on the right that'll be like, oh, it's not a win unless Iran is obliterated. The IRGC must be gone, all of them. Every Ayatollah. There can't be an Ayatollah. There's going to be naysayers no matter what. But as far as the American people are concerned, if we've got nukes under control, Strait of Hormuz open, economy getting fixed, cool, we're done. We're good. So, and to be fair, of the items on this list, this is probably the easiest one. So pray to God that we are able to get that one accomplished. Number 2, securing American elections. The Save America Act has passed the House multiple times, but remains stalled in the Senate despite Trump's strong push to attach it to must-pass legislation such as FISA. Reauthorization. The bill requires proof of U.S. citizenship for federal voter registration, along with photo ID and other election security measures. It is also one of the most universally popular issues, an easily winnable conquest by Senate Republicans, with more than 8 in 10 voters supporting ID requirements, pollster Scott Rasmussen said on social media. Advancing it would energize supporters ahead of early voting, though some Senate Republicans have noted implementation challenges before November. Solving it means securing Senate passage, potentially via reconciliation, and beginning rollout steps to claim a clear legislative victory on voter security. Now, before we continue with that portion, let's say something about reconciliation. They will not be able to get it through the parliamentarian. This is an Obama-era, Harry Reid-era parliamentarian. President Trump has called for her to be removed. I wholeheartedly agree. There is no reason why something as popular as the Save America Act should be stalled for partisan reasons. Okay? It is bipartisan. Bipartisan support for the Save America Act. Bipartisan support for voter ID. Bipartisan support for other aspects of And when I say bipartisan, we're getting no actual help from the Democrats. I'm saying bipartisan as far as the voters are concerned. You want to really stick it to the Democrats, put them on record voting against this, highlight what it is, get it out there to the people, get it past the reconciliation, or my preferred method, which would be to end the filibuster, and the elections are ours. Victory is ours. A March Marist poll indicated that 34% of Americans expressed little or no confidence in their state or local government to conduct fair and accurate elections in November, which is up from 24% previously. And to be fair, 34% expressed little or no confidence. Okay? That's in a poll. Reality is, I would say that the number of people who at least question election integrity is over 50%. We already know that it's over 80% as far as the people who believe that our elections should be secured with the very basic requirements of voter ID. But John Thune and the Uniparty Swamp have other ideas. If we want to win in November, this is paramount. And I don't know what the solution is, because John Thune doesn't seem to want to get rid of the parliamentarian, which he could. He doesn't want to try to get rid of the filibuster, which he could. He doesn't want to try to press his caucus and to get the word out and shame the Democrats, which he could. He can do any one of three things to at least try to get it passed. Instead, he just goes on these little mini questionnaires. You can't call them interviews. He doesn't do interviews. He just does little press conferences where he takes short questions and then leaves. And he always says, it's the math. We don't have the math. The math. It's the math. Well, then do better math. Okay? You're the Senate majority leader. You have the majority in the Senate. You have control over certain members of the Senate. Use that. Unless you just don't want to, which is, again, has been my contention the entire time. Number 3, inflation and the cost of living. The quote-unquote dinner table issues have always been a high priority in determining about what issues citizens are most concerned. 2026 is no different. Inflation and household goods, such as groceries, housing, energy, gas, consistently rank as the top voter concern in 2026 polling, often cited by 26 to 40% as the most important issue. Trump's approval on the economy and inflation remain underwater in multiple surveys, and that should just simply not be the case. He is the best economic president we've had in decades, and yet because of, number one, what he inherited, number 2, the Iran war, which you can put that on him, but number 3, Democrats stopping common sense things from happening. Between those 3, we are stuck with an economy that's not feeling too good at the dinner table. Now, whether or not it's as bad as it could be, if things were different, we don't know. You can't unprove a negative, right? So they got to just make it better. They got to bring costs down, bring wages up, make things more affordable. That's, for whatever reason, has become the Democrats' mantra now, and that should not be. This is voters' dominant pocketbook issue. Tariffs, the Iran-related energy disruptions, and other factors have contributed to pressure. Demonstrable progress, like stabilizing or lowering prices, is essential to improve economic perception and generic ballot numbers. The solution, at least in the minds of voters, comes in the form of tangible easing of cost pressures, such as successful Iran deal lowering prices, targeting deregulation, or other measures before voters head to the polls. Even incremental improvements in sentiment could help Republicans' cause. Last year, a report from the Pew Research Center found that the affordability of healthcare, inflation, and federal budget deficit, and the numbers of Americans living in poverty are also among the public's top concerns. So the economy is not as broken as it could be, and that's not a good message. But that's the only message that they have right now. It would be worse if Kamala Harris was in office. It would be worse if Joe Biden was still in office. That's not an argument to stay in office. You have to say, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's working. Your prices are going down. Your wages are going up. Things are good. The economy is good. You've got to make the economy hum, and you don't have a whole lot of time to do it. Don't forget, actions taken today oftentimes won't affect the economy, the whole economy, for months. So if you really want to make things happen, stop the Iran war, which we already talked about, and engage in the economy building practices that can make an impact before November. Now, I'm not one who says, you should make decisions based strictly on election timing. As a matter of fact, I think that's arguably the biggest flaw of our constitutional republic. I wouldn't trade it. I'm not suggesting we make a change. I'm just saying that nothing's perfect, and one of the imperfections is that when you have the constant churn, the constant cycle in Congress, in states, every 4 years with presidents, yada, 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 it does make a challenge for being able to sustain long-term policies, especially as they pertain to the economy. So, I don't like it, but I understand the importance of it, at least in our current economic and political scenarios. Number 4, always happens, so this will always be top of mind, but this time it's a little bit different because things have been getting better. Yes, I'm talking about immigration and deportations. Immigration and border security typically rank among the top 3 to 4 issues for voters and have historically been strengths for Republicans. However, some enforcement actions have drawn criticism and contributed to dips in approval. This is why Neville Royce Singham and Alex Soros are so vehement about stopping ICE. They want ICE to be hated. It's not just about actually stopping deportations. It's about reducing the popularity of deportations. They during the 2024 election, they were smacked with a very, very stark reality, and that's that most Americans, including Democrats, wanted illegal aliens deported. We no longer wanted open borders, even Democrats. We didn't. You and I never wanted it in the first place, but even Democrats were like, whoa, 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 pump the brakes or something. This is getting out of hand. And then they started asking, would you support deportations? We just let in, however many tens of millions. Do you support deporting them? The Republicans are like, yes, that's what we've been saying the whole time. And Democrats are like, yeah, I mean, it did get out of hand. Let's go ahead and deport. Well, that's changed a bit, thanks, like I said, in large part to Neville Royce Singham and the No Kings movement and the anti-ICE movements and Alex Soros and these woke district attorneys and all the various forces that are trying to bring back open borders and make it unpopular to deport people. And unfortunately, it's working, if you trust the polls. Back to the article. It remains a high salience issue that motivates the base while independents watch for results. Sustained control and visible reductions in illegal crossings or related problems have already reinforced a key advantage, with a new sheriff in town as ICE, former Oklahoma State Trooper Lance Schroyer, being nominated as director, could help rehabilitate the image or popularity of Trump's deportation operations. For this to help Republicans, sorry, I'm just not reading straight today. For this to help Republicans, border security metrics must be maintained, along with enforcement priorities and possibly advance related legislative or executive actions that demonstrate effective management without major backlash. That's going to be the tough part. How do you deport people humanely? I mean, I'm not asking you that. This is a question for you or for ICE or for President Trump or anybody else. It is the question that, Democrats, even those who do support deportations, they're like, yeah, we like deportations, we need them, but there's got to be a humane way to do it. They didn't have to be so brutal. They don't have to do this. Well, yeah, there is a humane way to do it. It's called end sanctuary cities. The most humane way to engage in a capture and deportation, to grab them when they're in jail. That's easy. Send a couple of ICE agents over. They pick them up. They're in handcuffs. They do the transfer. They put them in the car, take them to the facility, and then they get deported. Versus having to bring in entire teams of ICE agents to go run around the cities, run around the streets, bust into wherever. That is dangerous. And it's not the ICE agent's fault. It's the illegal aliens' fault, and it's the Democrats' fault for the sanctuary policies. So, if you want things, this is the narrative that has to be spun. Tom Homan has tried to, but people just aren't listening. A lot of people. So, it's up to us to be more direct. It's not just broadcasting the message on the news. That's not working. It's got to be you and me talking to our friends. It's like, hey, explaining to them that sanctuary cities harm legal and non-criminal illegal aliens. They do. Sanctuary city policies are designed to help illegal alien criminals, including violent criminals. In other words, if you live in a sanctuary city and you want to help immigrants, help non-criminal, They're here. They might be illegal immigrants, but they're not breaking any other laws. Okay, if you want to help those people, don't take rapists and murderers and armed robbers and put them back into the communities to keep them from getting deported, to keep them out of ISIS's hands, because that's what sanctuary city policies do. You want to help those people get rid of the criminals? Okay, end sanctuary city policies. There's this. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of is when you hear Democrats talk about we want to protect our undocumented citizens with sanctuary policies. Okay, no, you are doing harm. If you want to protect undocumented citizens, as you call them, then don't put murderers back on the streets with them. You want to protect this guy who's here illegally maybe, but he hasn't done anything else wrong. Okay, we want to deport him, but we're not going after him directly. We're going after the guy that actually wants to hurt that person. So let us deport the bad guys. Don't protect them. Stop protecting them. Protect the people that you want to protect. Stop hurting the people that you want to protect. It's logic, and it pisses me off. I mean, there are a lot of illogical things about Democrat policies. There's a lot of illogical things about leftist ideologies. But I would say sanctuary policies are hands down by far the least logical and the most retarded, period. All right, time to stop spitting and go on to number 5. Do we have time? Yeah, barely. Healthcare costs, healthcare premiums, and out-of-pocket costs are, according to nonprofit research charity KFF, a recurring top-tier voter concern, often ranking high in economic worries alongside of inflation. KFF's website defines themselves as meeting the need for a trusted, independent source of information on healthcare, on national health issues, one with the scope and reach to be a counterweight to healthcare's vested interests and a voice for the people. That's basically what they're saying is we're going to take on big pharma, big hospitals, big medicine, big health, and we're going to do it from a, just sort of a people-based approach. I don't know if that's true. I don't know much about the organization, but it sure sounds nice. Actions that stabilize or lower premium costs for families, address implementation fallout from recent bills, or offer targeted relief ahead of the election can flip the script on this historically favorable to Democrats issue. For whatever reason, Obamacare, which didn't deliver what it was supposed to deliver, Obamacare, which has raised healthcare costs dramatically for tens of millions of Americans, Obamacare, which is the greatest thing ever to happen to big pharma and big insurance for that matter, is for whatever reason still popular with the left. And I just don't know why. It doesn't make any sense unless you take into account the aforementioned illogic of Democrat policies and massive illogic of leftist ideologies. I don't know what the fix is there. So just throwing that out there. That was one of the 5 items. It's not a topic I would talk about because I don't know the solution other than the obvious, which nobody seems to have an appetite to do, which is to get rid of Obamacare and start over. Go private. Go private. That's why, hey, jdrucker.com/health, jdrucker.com/health. Talk to my friends at America First Healthcare. Maybe I might not have a solution for America, but I might have a solution for you.
Help me help you. Help me help you.
It's no secret that I have my concerns about the American economy, the global economy in general. After all, I do own and operate economic collapse.report, so clearly I have concerns. But with that said, there are distinctly very good reasons to believe that the U.S. economy is headed towards something good in the future, that we have the strength and the stability to overcome many of the challenges that we are facing today. There's the affordability issue with inflation, there's the Iran war, there are all these various risks and challenges that face the economy. But with that said, there's no reason to be in doom and gloom mode, not yet, and Lord willing, not ever, because the economy is really the backbone of what keeps America afloat. And I know that sounds, isn't that double talk? No, not really. we have other ways that we could stay afloat. Other countries, other empires have taken advantage of those ways themselves. We look to the economy as our way of not only keeping ourselves in good condition, but also of exerting force across the globe, soft power, if you will. Economist Joseph P. Quinlan, who is the head of CIO market strategy for Merrill and for Bank of America Private Bank, authored a piece breaking down 10 reasons that his firm is bullish about the long-term prospects for investing in America. Now, this is obviously not investment advice. I'm not going to tell you where to park your money. You can park your money wherever you want, but there are reasons to believe that it makes sense to park your money somewhere in the American economy. You can read through the various points. I'm just going to take them one at a time and read his perspective. Number one, economic diversity and dynamism. Think of our economy, this is Quinlan's speaking, think of our economy as a hydra-headed superpower leading the world in such diverse activities as aerospace, agriculture, finance, energy, technology, healthcare, education, and numerous other industries. In other words, we have the diversity of, not diversity as in like diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, diversity is an economic diversity. We have had challenges in one sector or another sector or another sector at any given time throughout American history. But we've always been able to lift ourselves up. When the automotive industry is down, the hospitality industry is up, for example. So it really is having this diverse and multi-headed hydra, as he put it, of an economy makes it very, very hard to take the whole thing down at once. You'd have to take, it's not like dominoes falling. A lot of times when one industry goes down, another one picks itself back up. Number two, geographic superpower. And I'm not going to read what he says. This is obvious. We got a sea on one side, a sea on another side, harmless Canada up top, and semi-friendly Mexico. We're not worried that Mexico is going to invade us. We're not worried about military incursions in any direction. Not to say it's not possible, especially if you include terrorist attacks as military invasions, and definitely, especially if you include border crossings as invasions. In both cases, we do still have challenges to defeat. But we're not sitting there like Russia, who has countries that are against it, with major weapons buildups just across the border, or vice versa, right? Europe itself has what they believe to be an enemy right at their gates. You look at Israel, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, everywhere in the Middle East, same challenges there. You look even at China, and China is not, even though they have some degree of security, it's still not the same degree that we have. They are still far more vulnerable than we are. Geographically speaking, from a military perspective, it makes sense. Now, this does pose sometimes, occasionally, it does pose some challenges because we are distant from some of our own consumers, places where we would want to export to and vice versa. It costs more to send a ship from China to California than it does to send a train from China to Russia, for example. But all things being equal, I'll take our geographic benefits over the detriments there. Number three, startup culture. According to Quinlan, he writes, America's economic metabolism is different from the rest of the world. No country creates and destroys as maniacally as America, and I like the way that he put that. On one hand, you could say it's a bad thing that ever since 2010, there have been 40% of Fortune 500 businesses that have either been sold or gone bankrupt or just disappeared altogether. Except it's not. It would be in other countries that are dependent on individual large corporations. But ours they're not just falling and not being replaced. They're falling and being replaced by startups. This year, last year, I should say. Is it this year? Well, no, let me read it real quick. Make sure I got my fact. In the last 6 months, the last 12 months. Gosh, read right. In the last 12 months, we have had over 6 million new businesses created. That's a record. And that alone should tell you two things. Number one, the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well, and sometimes by by necessity. I mean, a lot of times people are losing their jobs and then deciding, you know what, I'm not going to go out and do any more job interviews or start over with a new career. I'm just going to build my own business. And they can do that. This is the United States of America. If you can do that anywhere, you can do that here, and people are taking advantage of that. But it's not all out of weakness. A lot of times, especially in the tech industry, it's out of strength. Some of our greatest startups are a result of somebody working at a company and thinking they could do better, and then they do. That's the beauty of it. Lest we forget, perfect example of this whole mega corporation falling to the tiny startup below them. There was a time not too long ago, a couple decades ago, when a little company called Netflix went to Blockbuster Video and said, "Hey, you want to buy us for $50 million?" And they were literally laughed out of the boardroom. They were laughed out. Now, of course, Blockbuster is gone. They are busted. And Netflix is a gargantuan. Our startup culture is unambiguously a strength and can be something that sustains us as a nation, even if other economic factors start to crumble. Number 4, we are a magnet for foreign investments, $50 trillion. $50 trillion in foreign investments currently flowing into the United States of America. I don't even need to dwell on that one. You get the idea there. Brand haven. I sort of disagree here. Not that I disagree that we are a brand haven, but let me tell you what he says, and you tell me if you agree or not. These brands. Oh wait, let me start from the top. He's talking about that U.S. is home of 9 of the world's top 10 global brands in 2026. He says these brands are more than commercial success. They are expressions of American soft power. There's that phrase again, soft power. American culture, technology, and business extends far beyond its borders. Now, when he says brands, when I say I disagree, let me be clear about something. I disagree with the framing. Expressing it as brands does often give the wrong. It is technically correct, but it's the wrong mentality that comes from that. When we think of brands, we might think of like Apple or Ford. But what he's referring to when he says brands, he's talking specifically about the large corporations that have influence both here in the United States, obviously, but also abroad. That's how they determine the size of a brand is based upon its reach. So when we look at it as the brand's reach, the brand expression, okay, fine. Now it makes better sense. It's not about the brand. It's about who they reach and how well they do that. And that, my friends, is soft power. That is the true expression of soft power that can make a huge difference in our stability. Other nations need us, need our companies, need our products. They might not need our workers. That's where they go to China. They might not need our production. That's where they go to China. They might not need our direct influence when it comes to technology, for example. They need our innovations, but they don't necessarily need to buy technology from us. They can get that from South Korea or India, Taiwan, various places. But when it comes to the actual businesses, the companies, the capital, the resources, our soft power is best reflected with the strength of our, as he calls it, brands. Speaking of soft power, number 6 is unmatched hard power. We got the military, period. And that military isn't just about expressing strength here in the United States from a defense perspective as well as abroad when necessary. It also means it's good for business. It's good for the economy. Everything from, as he puts it, America's defense leadership is not merely a strategic asset. It is also an important economic advantage, supporting innovations across aerospace, cybersecurity, AI, and advanced manufacturing. Say what you will about the military-industrial complex. It is definitely bad and has far too much influence here in the United States of America, even in business. But with that said, it's also good for business. It is. Abroad, you might agree or disagree with selling $800 million worth of F-35s to Turkey, but it's good for business. Maybe bad for Turkey. Well, it's good for Turkey. Maybe bad for Greece or Israel or whoever else is going to be on the other side of those F-35s. But as far as business here in America, it's definitely a good thing. Number 7, tech leadership. You could look at, obviously, the aforementioned South Korea, Taiwan, China, Japan, even India. You can look at those areas as far as tech creation, tech building, right? Well, we build a lot of our tech in other nations. But when it comes to tech innovation, tech leadership, as he puts it, we've got it. We're not miles ahead of everybody else, but we are ahead still. He says America is the largest market in the world for research and development. That's the important part. Spending as far as AI, investment in AI in the U.S. is light years ahead of most of Europe and the rest of the world. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, I don't know how to pronounce that, co-founder of the world's most valuable company, was born to Taiwanese immigrants who brought him to the U.S. at a very young age. So even when the tech innovations are coming from elsewhere, they're still parking right here. Number 8, academic excellence. I'm going to skip that one because I can disagree. I mean, I get it. It's just hard for me to say positive things about our academia because of the destruction that they're doing here in the United States of America. Are they the best when it comes to training for economic reasons? Okay, fine. But that's not a fair trade-off. I would much rather they suck at helping the economy and stop indoctrinating people, because they might be helping the economy from an educational perspective, but if they are able to get their Democrat Socialists of America into power, which they're in the process of doing because it does come from academia. They always say it's the leftist class, the globalist class. No, it's the professor class that we have to worry about when it comes to the DSA. And if they are able to accomplish their goals, well, that's not going to be good for the economy or the nation or the world. So we're going to call this list of 10, we're going to call it 9 because I'm going to disagree with him there just out of principle. Number 9, dollar dominance. We've talked about in the past. I've told people go buy gold and silver because there are reasons with the death of the petrodollar, with the push for gold in particular to be a reserve currency, with the rise of Bitcoin. There are many reasons to think the dollar is on its last leg. But, as he says, the dollar's been on its last leg, allegedly, for a long time, and yet here it still is. According to Quinlan, he says the predictions of the dollar's demise have been a recurring feature of modern finance. Yet, the greenback remains the world's dominant reserve currency, the primary medium of global trade and finance, and the ultimate safe haven during periods of crisis. So even though I'm sitting here saying, for years, I've been saying, the dollar could be falling any day now, it hasn't. So when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. And so far, I've been wrong. The dollar has not collapsed. And praise God for that. I haven't been cheering for it to collapse. That was more of a prediction. And since most of my predictions are correct, I feel no shame when I get the occasional one wrong. Number 10, competitive drive. You all know about this one. This is, after all, what truly legitimately makes America great. Summing it all up, at 250 years old, America remains the world's leading economic, financial, technological, and military power. The entrepreneurial DNA of 1776 continues to run strong through our nation. Think the willingness to take risks, challenge conventions, attract talent, and reinvest itself. That's worth celebrating. It truly is. And yes, I know that there are still problems. We are still facing the potential for food shortages. We're still facing the risks of gas prices continuing to stay high if Iran goes nuts, as a lot of us expect they will. There's a lot of risks still happening in the world, and there are still a lot of people in America who are suffering as a result of these affordability challenges, we'll call it. But there's no reason to be scared of the economy. There's no reason to think, at any moment the U.S. economy is going to collapse. I'm not saying that it won't, but I will admit that over the last year and a half, ever since President Trump has been in office, my predictions of doom and gloom for the U.S. economy have, in many ways, subsided.
Here it is. Show me the money.
The fireworks were the easy part. Now comes the actual work. Yes, it was an amazing celebration. Yes, the patriotism was felt even by the left. I have to admit, I was not expecting there to be such little protest. I thought that they were going to try everything they could to destroy this celebration simply because they hate America. But it gave me hope. Maybe the America haters are fewer than I thought. Maybe the polls are wrong. Maybe the Marxists are not nearly as powerful as as I've been led to believe, as I've been leading you to believe. I don't think that's true. I think that they are gaining in power, but for whatever reason, and praise God for this, they did not ruin our 250th birthday. With that said, yes, we can have hope, and we should, but we also have to fight, and that fight starts now. This is a great break, an awesome break, a very, very well-deserved break, not just for Americans, but for our leaders, for President Trump and his administration, for our men and women serving in the armed forces. Was very nice to see so much patriotism floating across this great nation. But now we got to get back to work. Celebration's over. Time to roll up our sleeves, figuratively and literally. I have an article over at patriot.tv. Generally speaking, I like to go through these articles and give you my commentary. This particular one stands alone, and instead of just sitting here and reading it to you, which I don't like to do, I'm going to go ahead and I hate doing it. I do. I hate it, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's better than me trying to read. As many of you know, my reading skills aloud just aren't necessarily the best. So I am going to turn to artificial intelligence, which has a pretty decent facsimile of me, and allow it to do the reading for me. I haven't listened to it. I read it, obviously, but I haven't listened to it, so I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. So without further ado, here is AI JD reading this article from Patriot.tv titled "The Fireworks Were the Easy Part."
The tall ships are weighing anchor. The last of the fireworks ash has settled onto driveways from Boston to San Diego. Philadelphia has lowered a 1-ton stainless steel time capsule into the ground at Independence National Historical Park, sealed until 2276. America's 250th birthday, the largest coordinated celebration in the nation's history, is now in the past tense. And the most important question of the entire semi-quincentennial has not yet been answered, because it was never going to be answered by a parade. It gets answered starting today. Celebration is not conviction. A nation can cheer for liberty on the 4th of July and surrender it by inches the other 364 days of the year. We have done exactly that for decades. So before the bunting comes down, it is worth asking the uncomfortable question the confetti was never designed to address. Was the 250th a launching pad, or was it a museum piece? We have been here before. Anyone tempted to believe that patriotic spectacle automatically produces patriotic substance should revisit 1976. The bicentennial was magnificent. Tall ships filled New York Harbor then too, and an estimated 6 million spectators lined the waterfront. Americans wept at the sight of Old Glory and told pollsters they had never been prouder of their country. Then came the years that followed. National malaise, a hollowed-out military, gas lines, hostages in Tehran, and a cultural establishment that spent the next 2 decades teaching American children to be embarrassed by the very founding the country had just celebrated. The emotion of 1976 was real. It simply was not converted into anything. It was spent like a paycheck instead of invested like an inheritance. The 2026 celebration exceeded its predecessor in every measurable way. Roughly 20 nations dispatched their premier tall ships to New York Harbor, led by the Coast Guard cutter Eagle, in the largest international maritime gathering in American history. The America 250 time capsule buried in Philadelphia holds nearly 200 artifacts and will not be opened for another 250 years. These were worthy tributes. But scale is not the variable that failed in 1976. and scale is not the variable that will decide what happens now. Take the government at its word. Here is the part worth holding on to. The official framing of this anniversary, straight from the State Department's Freedom 250 initiative, invited citizens to ignite a spirit of adventure and innovation that will raise the nation to new heights over the next 250 years. The next 250 years. Washington rarely says anything worth engraving, but that phrase deserves to be taken with complete seriousness, more seriously, perhaps, than its authors intended. Because a 250-year mission cannot be executed by a task force, it cannot be funded by an appropriations bill or scheduled by an events committee. A mission measured in centuries can only be carried by the one institution that actually operates on that time scale, and that institution is the family, seated at the dinner table, transmitting what it believes to the generation that will outlive it. God built the mechanism for this long before Philadelphia did, and he described it precisely. And these words, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. That is Deuteronomy 6, and it is the only transmission protocol that has ever successfully carried a covenant across centuries. Not monuments, not capsules, diligent, daily, unglamorous teaching in the house and by the way. Liberty obeys the same law that faith does. It survives exactly one generation of silence, and then it dies, no matter how impressive the fireworks were at its last birthday party. What July 5th patriotism looks like. So, what does the mission actually require of ordinary Americans now that the harbor is empty? Nothing exotic, which is precisely why it is so often neglected. It looks like fathers who can explain why 1776 happened, not merely that it happened. It looks like parents who read the Declaration aloud at home because they know the school will not. It looks like showing up at the school board meeting in November with the same energy the crowd brought to the waterfront in July. It looks like church pews that stay full after the patriotic sermon series ends, because the congregation understands that the God who grants liberty is the same God who holds nations accountable for what they do with it. And here is the irony that should sting a little. A nation that can coordinate the navies of 20 countries into a single harbor, choreograph 100 aircraft over the Hudson, and engineer a time capsule to survive until 2276, cannot seem to organize its own citizens into remembering, 12 months from now, why any of it mattered. The logistics were never the hard part. The remembering is the hard part. It always has been. The founders understood the distinction better than we do. They did not celebrate independence in the summer of 1776. They declared it, and then they spent 7 years of war and another decade of nation-building securing it, most of them poorer for the effort and some of them dead. The party came later, and it was earned. Our generation has inherited the party. Whether we earn it retroactively is the whole question of the next 250 years. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. The tall ships have sailed, the capsule is buried, the mission is just beginning, and unlike the fireworks, it will not announce itself. It will simply wait, every morning, to see who shows up.
We live in a cynical world. A cynical world.
It's a very Jerry Maguire day, I suppose. You know, there are two main takeaways here. It's a great article, by the way. You can find that over at patriot.tv. But there's two real takeaways from all of this. Takeaways that I believe are important because they're distinctions. You know, I often talk about how the various forces of evil, the globalists, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Marxists, they tend to think along the lines of years or decades or even centuries. That's been the hallmark of the evil side of things for a very long time. Whereas patriots, conservatives, America Firsters, whatever you want to call us, we tend to focus on the now. We might think, days, weeks, maybe even months ahead. But for the most part, we don't go about planning the next 250 years, let alone anything, more than that. We don't even think 25 years ahead. We rarely think 25 days ahead. And that's been a challenge, except that it has not. I would argue that if you read your Bible, you'll know that we are supposed to focus on the here and now. And whether it's intuitively or based upon some inherent understanding of Scripture, or maybe if it's just the logic and understanding of knowing that when you got a problem, you deal with the problems that are in front of you. Okay? Deal with the problems in front of you. You can think ahead, but it's very similar to driving, we'll say. When you're driving, you're concerned about the road directly ahead of you, but you're not looking at the road directly ahead of you, 5 feet in front of you. You're driving by looking at the road in the distance. You're foreseeing bad things that could be happening, kids running into the road or anything silly like that. You're not, even though your concern is the road directly ahead, the current road, you are still looking forward. Make sense? And I think that's how we should go about living our lives. As patriots, as conservatives, and this is, obviously if you're a Christian, it makes sense, biblically speaking, but even if you're a secularist or a whatever, different religion, it still does make sense from a conservative, patriotic perspective to look forward, but to focus on the issues directly ahead of us, the issues of today. It's, was it Matthew 6:34? Yes. Take therefore no heed of the morrow, for the morrow shall take thought for things of itself. Makes sense. It's hard for us because we are trained, and it's ingrained through education systems to plot ahead. We talk about quarterly reports and yearly projections, and where they ask us, what do you want to be in 5 years, and all this stuff. But it really is focusing on what's here and now, what's directly in front of us. That is the path that we should be following. Now you might say, what does that have to do with the future? How can we affect the future and ensure our future by focusing on today? And the answer is easy. It's through our children. We lead by example. We teach with both words and actions. And when our children, and not just children, it can be just younger people around us. If you're 25 and a mother of a 4-year-old, then you're the adult, they're the child, you're teaching them. If you're 50 and you're working with somebody, maybe a child, or maybe one of your children, not a child, but maybe one of your children is that 25-year-old, okay? You're still teaching them, again, with your actions and words. Just as they did in not just biblical times, but throughout history. Before the printing press, before any of that stuff, it was always an oral tradition. Sure, we would pass things down in writing ever since the birth of writing, but not everybody could read, not everybody could write, and so we talked about it and we acted upon it on a day-to-day basis. We have, as a society, grown so dependent on technology. And I find myself doing it as well, I don't print out nearly enough. I am, unfortunately, my wife reminded me of this the other day. We don't have any pictures of our kids. We don't. We do, digitally, but, when I was growing up, there was pictures of me and members of my family throughout the house. We don't have that. We got it all on our phones or computers. What's the point of having it elsewhere? We have grown dependent on technology to act as the wealth of human knowledge in our pockets, the ability the internet lives forever, so we don't have to remember anything. We don't have to know how to spell anything. It corrects us. Heck, we don't even have to think anymore. We just go to AI and say, hey, what do you think? What should I think about this? I don't know if you actually ever asked that. I would never ask that of AI. But I have questioned AI with direct questions, and I'm sure many of you have as well. We need to be better if we are going to persist well beyond the 250th birthday of the United States, if we are going to make it to 500, if we're going to make it to 251, then we need to reduce our dependence on technology. We need to focus on solving the problems of today. And we need to teach our youths, our children, our grandchildren in some cases, the people around us, those who look up to us. We need to teach them, again, with our actions. Fight the good fight today. Teach the traditions, teach the understandings, the skills, the knowledge. Teach it verbally. Don't just say, oh, if you want to figure out how to change your tire, go watch a YouTube video. No, actually go out and take your daughter out and have her change her tire just to make sure that she can do it. We don't do that nearly enough anymore. So it's amazing as the 250th birthday celebration, America 250, Freedom 250, all these various names, all the fireworks, all the speeches, all the patriotism. Again, I was very impressed that there were no major incidents. I thought that there would be. I would have expected it. I did expect it. I thought that there would be attempts to disrupt America's happiness by doing what those who hate America would do, which is to try to take that happiness away with their disruptions. For whatever reason, that did not happen, and praise God for that. But now we're moving on, and we need to carry that enthusiasm into the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. Focus on making every day amazing for yourself, your family, your community, your city, your county, your state, and the nation. And you do this by focusing on the here and now. Meanwhile, plan for and improve the future by teaching your children, teaching other people's children. Okay? It's not just about your kids. I mean, I'm not saying, oh, go find somebody else's kids and start teaching them. I'm not saying that. We're not getting into the creepy world. But I remember, this has been over 2 decades. Yeah, it's definitely been over 2 decades. I was asked to fill in for Sunday school at our church. And I went in there. It was my son and a bunch of other 8-ish-year-olds in there. Wow. I was outmatched. I went in with thoughts and curriculum and everything. I was going to talk about Noah and all this other stuff. It's going to be the best fill-in. Let's just say somebody had to come in and basically not save me, but I lost control very quickly. I learned that day that maybe that's not my forte. But I did, however, have one of those children, just one, out of a large group. One of those children brought her dad up to me, introduced us, and he said, "My daughter said that you were trying to tell some interesting stuff about Noah, and she was hoping that you would finish what you were starting before apparently things went awry." And we chuckled, and yes, things went awry. So we went to lunch, and I had the audience, and I failed with the audience of 20-something, but I was able to do something with the audience of 3. It wasn't just the daughter and my son. It was also the gentleman, the father. I was there, and we talked through it. And I explained the importance of Noah's Ark, not just that, it saved the world and save the animals and all that stuff, everything, but the notion that you can start over, you can clear things, you can begin again by getting rid of the things that are poor and bad in your life. As we move towards this next 250 years, this next 250 days, this next 2.5 days, we should think along the lines every day, thinking of of today and taking no heed of tomorrow. What can we do to fix now? And if we do that every day, if we eliminate the bad, increase the good, and teach our children along the way, who knows? Maybe we will be here in 250 years to open up the time capsule from July 4th, 2026.
I'm not going to cry, Roy.
People have done more good, shown more courage, made more progress, righted more injustice, or achieved more greatness than you, the American people. For 250 years, the United States of America has been the hope, the promise, the light, and the glory among all of the nations of the world. All over the world, they try and be like us. Nobody can be like us, and with God's help, we will always be this or even better. We're going to be better. Here in our National Mall, we're celebrating freedom's triumph over tyranny, liberty's conquest over oppression, and the enduring victory of the American spirit from the July 4th, 1776 to July 4th, 2026. Big dates. That's big dates. Two big ones. And tonight our country is stronger, freer, richer, safer, and prouder than ever before. But it all started with the miracle of history that lives forever in the heart of every single patriot. In Philadelphia, our founding fathers summoned the courage of giants and the wisdom of centuries to boldly proclaim these timeless truths. They declared that all men are created equal,